We're back with some more of J.I. Packer's Concise Theology book. We're going to be, I think this is the last, is this the last of, I think this is the last of the first chapter, the first part, because it's divided into 4 quote-unquote parts. And I think this little bit on holiness is the last of that I need. And then we're going to be spending most of our time in part 2 here. So, but I wanted to pair the holiness chapter with what we're going to be talking about, which is covenant and the law, because there is a reason that the book of Leviticus and such exists, and it's because we serve a holy God. So, but yes, welcome in all those here live on Twitch. Grim, Lufaya, great to see y'all in here. And welcome into this week's special little guest, Black Rose Storm. Welcome in.
Hi.
Y'all might remember her from our gender and sexuality tough topics talk. She did well enough for her to deserve another spot on the roster. So there we go.
Yay. I'm going to sound so sarcastic or disinterested, and it's not intentional. I'm just tired. I'm so tired.
Oh, it's all good. All right, righty. So, let's dive into things here. So what does the word holy mean? Because we always want to define our terms. And Rose, just in your own words, it doesn't even have to be Packer's words here, but just in your own words here, how would you define holiness?
Oops, I almost knocked over my drink. I think for me, holiness is mainly about the relationship that you have with God, and then also how you outwardly portray that, and inwardly too. So how it comes out with your speech, how you dress, your character. I think all of those things for me is a really big part of holiness, specifically because there was a time where I was going to church, doing all of the things, but I was not outwardly portraying that, and that affected the aspect of holiness, because people would be like, you're a Christian, but you cuss like a sailor, or you dress like, wearing short shorts and a tank top when you're walking around the school, sort of thing. So that for me is a really big thing, is that it's not just about what the Bible says or, how the dictionary defines it. It's also about everything about your lifestyle when you're living as a Christian.
Interesting, because you're talking about personal holiness there, which is part of it, for sure. And actually, I'm in my men's Bible study, we're going through a book called Holiness as well by Ryle, which is such a good book that talks a lot about that subject. So you're not incorrect. And look, Kat's in the chat. Hello there. Good to have you in here. But no, yeah. So, but what about God's holiness, right? Because that I think when we look at and define God's holiness, then that also helps us define how we can be. And Kat in the chat here saying holiness is to be set apart, and yes, that is what the word literally means. If to say holy is to be set apart. In fact, there's what the verse that's Packer here opens up with is Leviticus 11:44, which says, consecrate yourselves and be holy because I am holy, right? So consecrate, setting apart, right, oneself, is a prerequisite to be holy, for sure. And so, and that goes into what you were saying, right? We're setting ourselves apart from the world by abstaining from cursing and things along those lines. So yes, it absolutely does. So it also covers, though, just everything about God that does set him apart, right? What is it that sets God apart? What makes God different from creation? Do you have any 2 cents that you wanted to add to that?
Was that were you asking me what sets him apart, or just asking if I want to add anything to the definition?
Either or.
Don't leave it open-ended. You can't do that to me.
Sorry, welcome in. Good to see you in here.
I'm sorry. I don't really have anything to add. I think that's pretty accurate. I haven't really thought about specifically God's holiness, just because it's kind of like integrated into how I live my life. So I've never really thought about it specifically. But
sure.
I do, because as a Pentecostal, our whole thing is that we're set apart, right? So we have the long hair, we always wear dresses and skirts, we never wear makeup, depending on, how deep you go into it. There's a lot of aspects to it. So the whole a big part of being holy is setting yourself apart in every aspect.
Yeah.
So that's just what I've grown up knowing. So I've never really thought about the specific differences between personal and godly, because that's just kind of integrated into my faith already.
Sure. Ghost, welcome in. Good to have you in here as well. But yes. What Packer says here is it's what makes him an object worthy of awe, essentially, of adoration, and even of dread. It covers all aspects of his transcendent greatness and moral perfections. Thus is an attribute of all his attributes, pointing to the godness of God at every point. And we did cover the infinite nature of God in a previous one of these, because God is beyond all comprehension. Because he is an infinite God and we are finite created beings, right? The creator has no limits, whereas the creation has to walk within the limits of the creator. So God is set apart in just his infinite holy nature in that sense. And he even goes on to give some examples about justice. Just going into the second paragraph. We're on page 43 for those following along in the book at home. It means just in all circumstances, God does what is right, period, because God defines what is right. He's the legislator and the judge. So the legislator meaning that he writes the laws, and the judge meaning that he makes the rulings on those laws, and even how to correctly interpret those laws even. But yeah, so that's another aspect of God's holiness there. Did you have anything you wanted to add on to any of that?
Nope.
But yeah, so the he judges justly according to wait. Hold on, I'm trying to dissect this sentence that he has here. He judges justly according to actual desert. What? Hold on. Is this how people spoke at one point? He judges justly according to actual desert. I don't know what that's supposed to mean.
Yeah, when I was reading it, it confused me too.
But anyways,
oops.
Well, so some of the verses here that Packer mentions, just kind of as we unpacker his words, is the yes. Every time I try to see if I can get to the guest star to laugh at that stupid joke that I make every week. But anyways.
It's such a stupid joke. I'm mad that one got me, but of course I've laughed at dumber, so.
Psalm
If it's dumb, I'll probably
7:11.
laugh.
God is a righteous judge who has indignation every day. Psalm 96:13. Before Yahweh, for he is coming. He will judge. He is coming to judge the earth, to judge the world in righteousness and the people in faithfulness. So, here's a little bit that a lot of that a lot of more liberal leaning Christians dislike, which is wrath of God as well. God's wrath is wrapped up in his holiness.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, because here's the thing. A lot of people look at the Old Testament God and be like, oh, look at how harsh God is, and look at how nice Jesus is. Yo, Jesus did some harsh things too. Do you know the kind of language that he called the Pharisees first and foremost, calling them vipers and all sorts of vile things, but also flipping tables and calling out he called out judgment on people straight up.
Yeah. And I think people forget that in that time, like, if you called someone a viper today, they'd be like, oh, okay. But in that time, calling them something like that was a really big deal.
Yeah.
Like, and flipping tables and whatnot, that's not how people acted back in those days. That's not what you did. Yeah. So I think that's something that people tend to forget, is that this is not, he was not the, I want to phrase this respectfully. He was not the good boy that a lot of people kind of like make him out to be. He had his moments where he was like, nah, flip.
Yeah, no, for sure. Yeah, cause I mean, Kat gave a good example. You whitewash tombs. Oh gosh, but no, it's all that's not us. That's not condoning like name calling in general, but though it's
right.
it's because Jesus did it purposefully to call out sinners, right? So, but which all of us are such. So, the all that to say that like God's wrath is real. Actually, I am planning on doing a sermon on one of these streams at some point here for y'all on the loving wrath of God, because the passage that I really want to focus on with that is when David messes up and God gives him some options on his punishment. And the options are have man invade and stuff, or to have God himself do destruction. David chooses God to do judgment because he trusts God's wrath, essentially, right? Trust that God knows when to stop, and it proves true, because God does send his angels as if his own hand to smite various parts of Israel, but still holds back his hand in certain regards, right? And so and it's not the devil that caused a chasm to open up and swallow up some of the rebels back when they were roaming around in the desert. That you cannot say that Satan is the one that caused any of that. God does act in wrath at times. Mm-hmm. Now, in terms of today, I don't think it's wise for us to assume that's hurricane that wiped out such and such, that had to have been judgment. They had to have done something really bad down there. Maybe sometimes there is. I mean, New Orleans, for example, is quite a capital of spiritual darkness. So It's not out of the question, but I don't think that we should go making any claims to such.
Yeah.
Do you have anything you want to add?
Yeah, I agree. I think that people are very quick to assume that certain things are judgment or certain things are of the devil. And I was just watching a video recently about a comedian who I don't really agree with because he got himself in trouble. But anyway, he was talking about how this lady in his neighborhood says that every like bad thing is of the devil and that the devil's after her. Like, you know, she'll have a bad day. And she's like very much like Southern Baptist Christian. And she's like, you know, I woke up this morning and this happened and this happened and this happened. And like the devil's just trying to get me today. It's like, no, you're just having a bad day. Like, yeah. I think that aspect of it too, that a lot of people are like, oh, if this is happening, that it's attack from the devil. It's like, no, sometimes stuff that just happens. It's just how it works. Not everything is of the devil. And I think that kind of jumping to those conclusions of like, this is judgment or this is of the devil or whatever kind of washes out what really is of the devil and what really is judgment. And I think that is, if not a problem already, is going to become a problem in the end days, because people are not going to know what is truly judgment and what's truly, you know, coming from devil. And then they're not going to be able to really make the decision of like, okay, you know, the end times are actually coming. They're actually here. I need to decide like which side I'm going to be on.
Yeah.
It's too late for that. And then your judgment is clouded. And then, you know, God is very merciful. So I'm hoping that he'll be able to, you know, kind of push people towards his side. But I think that it's going to be a problem because people are not, they use it so loosely that it's not going to really be concrete until it's too late.
Gosh, yeah. No, and as we learned last week during our talks about angels, demon, and Satan, that's like the devil is God's devil at the end of the day. Like Satan can't do anything outside of what God authorizes him to do. Like no power or authority comes from anything except from God. So even if we were to say, oh, the devil, blah, 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 blah. Well, even if we just look at Job, right? Sometimes the devil acts on God's direction because, you know, Satan was looking around, prowling the earth for people, and then comes up to God, and God's like, have you considered my servant Job? Maybe you should, go and test him out. So that all to say, like, but we know, as we've talked about in previous segments as well, God is good. That and like we were saying with because this all makes, you know, God look like, oh, he's just a like tyrant or something like that. But no, God is lovingly in control over every situation. Like, here's the thing: if the devil were to be the one in charge of every tornado and hurricane, we'd be dead. We'd
be in trouble.
Yeah,
we'd be dead.
We'd be in trouble.
100% be dead. And not even just that, like, it's also, if he was in charge of, like, any attack on our life, we would all be dead. All of us. Every single one. Like, we'd just be gone. Like,
yeah. No, absolutely. Now, it's because Adam and Eve at the beginning of all this chose to betray God in rebellion, and thus the curse of this world was brought about, and so there are bad things in this world as a result of that. If God were to take away every single bad thing, that would be undoing the consequences of Adam and Eve's free will choice. So God in his goodness is letting those consequences still play out, but we know that he is planning on undoing all of that as every single effect of the curse. We already have tastes of that through the Holy Spirit. And so therefore we know that he is going to come and make all things new, a new heavens and new earth that is like Eden on steroids.
Yeah.
But yeah. So Yeah, if anyone in chat has questions, always feel free to post away. Anyone watching this on YouTube later, do likewise. But yes, so wrath, and then there's also righteousness as well. So, which has to do with justice. So righteousness is a judicial standing. Someone that is righteous is someone that has a not guilty verdict, essentially. And so to live in righteousness is to basically live according to God's law, you could say. So God always lives according to his own law. Therefore, he is the epitome of righteousness. He is holy in his righteousness, set apart in it. And also, so another thing with God's wrath and holiness is that, like, so is also that God is the light. There is no darkness in him at all. So he is a holy and pure being. And so therefore, to have fellowship between himself and darkness is something that is an unholy impossibility. Because basically it's you can't have, like, darkness doesn't want to have fellowship with the light. Let's start there. So, but yet God is the one that does want to have fellowship with us. And so he purifies his people in order to become like light and more so. So whenever you see God's physical presence showing up, his holiness, right? It ends up really not mixing well with sinful people, because when, for example, God gave some specific rituals in order to, like, have people set themselves apart as holy, not because God wanted these animals to get slaughtered for the sake of just like his, like, some kind of, like, makes me happy to see animals get slaughtered. No, it's because God wanted this to be how they show their worship to God alone, right? And so because God says that he does not delight in the sacrifices, he delights in the heart, in the worship behind it all. And so with that being said, like, when some of Aaron's sons, when all this was first being set up with the God having his presence be manifested in a special way inside this tent, and two of Aaron's sons come in and bring what is known as strange fire, which is to say, they were burning like something, I think it was incense, in a way that was not according to God's prescription of things. God struck them dead then and there because they were coming into God's holy presence in such a way that in a darkness like fashion, in the darkness of their hearts. So then and there they got smitten dead. Yeah. Do you have anything you wanted to add?
No, I think that's good.
Yeah. Dance, thank you for the lurk as well. Good to have you in here, friend.
Get out of here, Dance.
Gosh, yeah, these two have been duking it out as my moderators in my chat, just being competitive.
I don't even know how that started with
you started it.
I did not. I don't even remember how that started, but it's just been going on for a couple days, so.
I don't think we should time her out in the middle of the recording here. I can't just make her shut up for 60 seconds. Anyways,
I mean, good.
Try. Alrighty. You've taken away her mod powers at the very least there, Dan. Good job.
How dare you?
Alrighty. So, but the whatchamacallit, So, with all that being said, that brings us into I guess the next part. It's about the covenant and the law. Because this is let me state this up front. Today we sit under a greater covenant, one that instead of being bought by the blood of animals, was bought by the blood of the God Man, Jesus himself. So in order for us, so when we're talking about the Old Testament covenants, it is a foreshadowing of what is to come. There are a lot of parallels there, but we do not have to do animal sacrifice, for example, because Jesus was our sacrifice, right? So
Thank goodness.
Yeah. So the patterns that are in the Old Covenant can be seen in the New Covenant in greater fashions. But yes, so. With that being said, covenants are solemn agreements. Basically, it's a two-way agreement between two parties, right? So it's not just. So here's the thing: a lot of people think like, oh, the law. Oh man, like God's just imposing all these rules. No, God puts promises down with that. God says if you do your part by doing all these things, I'll do my part, which is to bless you, multiply you, and make Israel a great people. So covenants are always two-way. There is blessings that come with it, as well as curses for should the covenant be broken, right? If you don't do your part, here's what happens, right? And so Israel ends up having a civil war, getting split up, and then getting taken by Assyria and Babylon, and taken off into captivity. So, yeah, so that was all promised. And when God makes a covenant with his creatures, God is the one that ends up that always establishes the terms. So, Noah is the first official covenant, one that is literally called a covenant in the Bible. But I would go so far as to say that there are patterns of the covenant with back with Adam and Eve, where there is promises made. The mandate was be fruitful and multiply. The promise was so that it'll be well with you. There was a animal that was sacrificed because after they failed and all this stuff, God did kill a creature to make their clothes. So that could be seen as as part of the pattern of a covenant there, loosely. It's not explicitly stated. So. But Noah is the first more explicit covenant that we get. Now, the covenant of Noah and every living creature. So this is in Genesis 9. Behold, I establish my covenant with you and with your seed after you, and with every living creature that is with you. That all flesh shall never be cut off by the flood of the water. So God's making his promises, right? So. God's saying, I ain't gonna flood, destroy the earth via flood. And here is a sign of the covenant that I am giving to you, which is the rainbow. I believe in here also, the animals are going to fear them. I believe might have been a part of the covenant. Yeah. Oh yeah, yes. yeah. So just before, earlier in chapter 9 here, there is a mandate given, which is whoever sheds men's blood, by his blood by man his blood shall be shed, basically establishing capital punishment for murder. And giving a reason for that, for God, for man is made in the image of God. And then secondly, be fruitful and multiply, swarm the earth and multiply in it. So there are both sides of the covenants there. But yes, so that's the covenant with Noah in a nutshell, is establishing capital punishment, establishing the mandate to go be fruitful and multiply, and God's side of the promise there is I ain't going to flood the earth to destroy it. That is our first covenant. Anything you wanted to add?
No.
Yo, Jeremiah, welcome, man. Good to see you in here. Yes, we're talking about holiness, covenant, and the law today. Welcome in. But yes, so the so God makes these covenants with Abraham as well. So there's the Abrahamic covenant, and with that, all he promises to bless Abraham and to bless all the families of the earth through him, right? So both of them were like internationally focused there, universally focused, because that was with every living creature there, and with even the covenant with Abraham was, and all the families of the earth will be blessed, right? But yes. Yeah. Oh, yeah. Someone argued that there's like no Noahide laws, some Noahic laws, you could say. Yeah. Which would be the capital punishment there. Yeah. So, yeah. That's a whole nother. That could be it's a whole nother thing. It's talking about capital punishments and if that should be a thing. Yeah. But no, yeah. So, and then Abraham, the one there. I will make you a great nation. I will bless you. And the command there was go forth from your land to the land that I will show you. Right. So you go here, I bless you. There you go. Dan's just capitalizing punishment. It's calling that capital punishment. Yeah, there you go. There we go. But yes, so God makes all these promises along with his covenants here. God's covenant with Israel at Sinai as well. So the Mosaic covenant, which is the one with Moses, took place later, and was yet another continuation of his covenant of grace. So this goes into Exodus 3. Yeah, so this one definitely is building off of the Abrahamic covenant, because God cites at the beginning of this that he is the God of the fathers, God of Abraham, Isaac, Jacob, all these things. So let's see here, and this is when the 10 Commandments were given, as well. So the 10 Commandments were wrapped up in the covenant, and then after the covenant, they then laid out some case law. A lot of like the rest of Exodus and parts of Leviticus and Numbers, and Deuteronomy, right? They are case law, where we would say, here's how you can apply the 10 Commandments in specific ways, because a lot of those laws can be attributed to various 10 Commandments, and so the so he had redeemed and claimed these people, the same in the same fashion as redeeming. That's another pattern here is water.
Yeah.
Yeah. Cause man, the flood, y'all, the language that describes the flood is super cool because it describes water from coming both above and below. How does water come from below? Geysers. You've got lots of water coming out of the earth as well as raining down on them. And so basically it's an unparting of the waters like in creation. So it's an uncreation, you can say. And therefore the parting of the waters at the Red Sea is also a sign of creation as well, a new creation, a new humanity that is supposed to be Israel. You could even go so far as to say baptism also is our create us going through the waters of creation as well.
I think also with water, it's interesting how that's used throughout, the Bible and throughout, God's works and whatnot. But if you really just think about the basic concept of water, it's necessary for the human life. It's necessary for our Christian life. It's necessary for when we're reading the Bible, but it's also so destructive. And the fact that it's kind of switches back and forth between those things is really interesting to think about.
Yeah. Yeah, because sometimes the waves and the water gets choppy and can like overtake the boat essentially, right? So yeah, there are times where water is constructive and sometimes where it's destructive, and that would be an interesting study actually. Oh, speaking of water, yes, thank you. We can hydrate.
I have water. I have hidden water. Oh no, my cap! I lost my cap. Hold on.
You lost there is so much cap there with having water in there. What are you on about?
I said I don't have water, okay? I have hidden water. There is water as an ingredient, but it's at the bottom of the list, okay? You can't come at me for that.
It's not hydrating though.
It's what I got.
Oh gosh. Alrighty. Anyways.
My water's in my car, okay? Leave me alone. I forgot to grab it.
Oh, interesting. So Jeremiah coming in here in the chat and saying that so the Jews believe there are 7 Noahide laws prohibiting murder, which we've covered, idolatry, blasphemy, sexual immorality, theft, and eating of living animals, establishing courts of justice. Interesting. I would have to do some further study because the murder one is very blatant. It's right there in the covenant. But the rest of those I would have to study up on. I mean, you can definitely see it in the Noah story. Like sexual immorality takes place very soon after, and so like interesting. Foundational laws of humanity? Interesting. Now, I would have to do some digging on that. That's the first I've heard of that. But yeah. So God's so again, this is Jewish belief we're talking about. Yeah. No, that's appropriate. You're good. You're good, Jeremiah. It's very appropriate because we're still talking about Old Testament stuff. And so going off of that. So, linking that with the Holiness chapter that we just read about, right? So, how does God dwell with a holy people? That is the book of Leviticus in a nutshell. That is literally how I would sum up that book. Is how does a holy God live with an unholy people? Boy, howdy, these people are unholy. And that's why the very early on in that book you have the death of Aaron's sons because they brought that strange fire in to show the problem here and what we're trying to solve, right, is like the problem. God cannot dwell because he is holiness, and light cannot have like covenant or relationship with darkness. How can a people that is as dark as Israel live with a holy God? And that is by setting themselves apart as holy in these ritualistic ways, which the rituals in and of themselves point forward to Jesus, and especially the sacrificial spots. But yes,
I appreciate Jeremiah's second message that he just said.
New Testament. How does God tolerate unholy people? Oh gosh, no. Honestly, no. That's another thing that we should note is God is a very patient God. We all live in such ways that act in rebellion against our Creator Himself. Like you can look around at this broken world and how humanity treats one another and see that very clearly. So God is very patient, and we all definitely deserve to be wiped out, and that is why God started making some of these covenants. God's covenant with Israel. We're on page 88 of the book now. God's covenant with Israel was preparation for the coming of God Himself in the person of His Son to fulfill all of God's promises and to give substance to the shadows cast by all types. So Jesus is the mediator of this new covenant, and offered Himself as the true and final sacrifice for sin by obeying the law perfectly. Right, so the law of the first covenant, which we will unpack more of what the law is in a moment. All of this, like Jesus becomes a representative head of this new human race, and is the inheritor of all the covenant blessings of the covenants of the past, becomes now bestows these blessings upon believers. So, basically, God, Hebrews like the chapters 7 through 10 of Hebrews kind of unpacks that God brought in an enhanced version of His one eternal covenant with sinners, a better covenant with better promises and a better sacrifice. Like you can just read through Hebrews and see, and it unfolds a lot of these patterns, like just very openly. So it's all a fulfillment of the old covenant, and such. Did you have anything you wanted to add there, Rose?
I think one of the most interesting things about this chapter that I have highlighted is when they're talking about the Mosaic covenant, is the failure of the Israelites to keep the Mosaic covenant showed the need for a new redemption and covenant if God's people were to be truly His and He theirs. That to me already shows that A, how patient God is, because we were just talking about that.
Yeah.
And B, how planned this all was. Like, He already knew way before that this covenant was also going to be broken. There needs to be a new one in its place, and that's going to have to happen a couple more times. So I think that shows God's patience, and also how I had a word for it and the word left me. Yep, the word's gone. I can't think of what I was trying to go with that, but patience and
or planning.
It wasn't for planning. It was how forgiving He is.
Oh, true.
And just like how gracious He is. So.
But no, yeah. Going off of this, this covenant framework let's see here. The goal of God's covenantal dealings is, as always was, the gathering and sanctifying, setting apart of the covenant people from every nation, tribe, people, and language. Right? Because we were just reading how even the covenant with Abraham says in it that through him he will bless all nations. Right? So from the beginning, blessing every nation was the goal. They will be his people, and God himself will be their God, as we read in Revelation 21:3. Yes. That is the ultimate goal. And this covenant framework, as Packer unpacks, is the embracing of God's basically the entire economy of God's sovereign grace. That's an interesting word. The economy of God's sovereign grace. So he goes on to say that Christ's heavenly ministry continues to be that of the mediator of the new covenant. So this economy of God's sovereign grace is not to say that like there's a finite amount of grace, because God is infinite in every way. But though it is how that gets exchanged. How does there's a set agreement on how especially looking at the law with Israel, it explicitly says like you hold to this, you get grace.
Yeah.
Now with the new covenant, it really, God did everything. So yeah. Salvation is a monogistic effort, and that word means that it is done by one person. Mono meaning one. God did all of the work. Salvation is won by God and applied to purely by God. Sanctification is a synergistic effort, and we'll get into sanctification in a future week, but though that is to say that it is a cooperative effort between both parties. So that is where we come into play, is not our salvation, right? Works do not save us, but though we walk in God's new covenant by pursuing our own personal holiness, like you were saying at the very beginning here, Rose. But yeah. So then, salvation is covenant salvation. Justification and adoption, regeneration, sanctification are all covenant mercies. Election of God was God's choice of future members to the covenant community. We covered election before, and that's a whole nother can of worms. And God's law is a covenant law, and that brings us into this chapter on law here, actually. So we're going to back up again. We're bouncing back and forth a lot between the Old Testament and New Testament, and that's for good reason. They're very interlinked. But let's really dive into what is known as the law here. Man was not created to be a law unto himself. In fact, I got done reading the book of Judges just the other week. Man, when man is a law unto himself,
it doesn't end well.
No,
it does not
really
end well.
Doesn't.
And even, because, you think of law is made for everybody. Even as individuals, I gave a lot of my testimony with the ones that you invited me to a while ago. But when I'm not going to say I was allowed. When I allowed myself to govern myself, it did not end well. No. So, even as something as basic as like thinking that you can go day to day without God in some aspect of your life, that's how you start backsliding. First of all, Don't do that. Second of all, it doesn't work well. like you will start to notice little bits and pieces of things that you were blessed with will start disappearing because you're not obeying what your basically your part of the deal. You're not holding up your part of the deal. And then, God's like, okay, you're not going to hold up your end of the deal. I'm going to start taking away things that I have blessed you with.
Absolutely. Yeah. Now, the law can be kind of broken up into various ways. We have the moral law, etc. But just the I mean just law in general, right? Here's the thing. God made the universe and therefore knows how we best ought to operate within how he made it, right? The fact that homosexuality is made against the law is because God made man and woman to have relationships with one another, but like between genders, not within. So all of that to say,
Can you repeat that one more time? I'm so sorry. I was reading the message and I heard sexuality and then it just completely went blank. Sorry. I got distracted. I'm sorry.
You're good.
I didn't take my meds today either, so that's also a problem.
That'll do it. No, yeah. So just saying that, like, because God constructed the world himself, there are good ways to operate within the world, right? So to have a right, to have a relationship between a man and a woman, is one example of that, because God knows how he made us, and we cannot say what is a man and what is a woman. God defined that from the beginning. So, which a lot of people will probably be touchy about. It's like, oh, what do you mean God gets to define the thing? Because he's the potter and we are the clay, yo. Oh boy. But no, yeah, it's that's just how that works.
Yeah.
So responding, Jeremiah is saying in the chat, responding to Rose's statement, immaturity is including. Wait.
So immaturity is including God in your life, and the maturity is that God is your life and everything else is included. Yeah.
Oh, okay. So immaturity is just saying God is there.
Right.
And then maturity is saying God is a part of. Okay, I see.
Like, and the best way that I can think of it. You should add that as a quote, actually. The holiday Christians is what we call them sometimes. That's kind of like the immaturity, is that you only show up on holidays. So.
Oh yeah, no, that okay. From that standpoint, no, I agree. Okay, gotcha.
Yeah.
Alrighty. But yes, so, going back to the law, right? So, the fallen human heart dislikes God's law, right? There are a lot of people that if we go and say like, oh, you don't get to define gender and sexuality, God does. That is an example of this. Mm-hmm. People do not like God's law. So, there's a, oh gosh, Romans 7 is brought up here, and that is quite a good passage, because Paul says there, "For I know that nothing good dwells in me, that is, in my flesh. For the willingness is present in me, but the working out of good is not." Right? For the good that we want, we don't do. We practice the very evil things that we don't want. But if I am doing the very thing that I don't want, I am no longer the one working it out, but the sin that dwells within me, right? And then Paul says that he finds then the principle that is in him. The evil is present in him, that even in him that wants to do good. For joyfully concur with the law. The law of God is in the inward man, but there's a different law over our members, over our flesh, waging war against the law of the mind. So that is to say that, you know, humanity wants to have our own law, is in and is always in opposition to God's law. Yeah.
I was gonna say we naturally want to go against God's law just all the time. No matter how devout Christian we are, we just like always want to go against it, and that's where kind of putting in the work with that relationship really comes into play.
Yeah. It goes to your favorite phrase there, Rose. You can't tell me what to do.
Yeah. No. That's my second favorite phrase. Yeah. My favorite phrase is "fight me." That's my favorite phrase. It's completely against what we're talking about, but that's neither here nor there.
Oh gosh. That is a whole separate discussion as to Rose's holiness there. But anyways.
Thanks, Dance.
That explains so much.
Every time I say that my favorite phrase is "fight me," somebody says that.
Oh gosh. Anyways, all right. So that all being said, now that we've established a broad definition of God's law, actually no. You know what? I'm going to go to the Dictionary of Bible Themes, one of my favorite books. It acts as both a dictionary and a concordance because it gives all sorts of cool scriptures to go alongside it. Now I'm going to go into here and look at its definition of law. So the Dictionary of Bible Themes, who wrote this? Packer was on the editorial team. Hey, there you go. But there, it was a whole team of people, it seems. But anyways, so it defines law as the God-given regulation for the life of the people of God in relationship with Him. As the command of God, it enables and gives shape to the relationship between God and human beings, on the one hand, and between fellow human beings. So interpersonal relationships on the other. And that I like that definition because it also says it's not just between God and man, but also between man and man. I think that is important. But yeah, and that brings us to the moral law. Just starting with the 10 Commandments, the Decalogue. There are a lot of laws in there that have to do with how we relate to one another. It starts off with how we relate to God. You shall have no other gods before you, right? But a good amount of those commandments are how we interact with one another. Don't murder them. Respect your parents. Don't covet. All these things are how we interact with one another. And in fact, a New Testament parallel. So many of the New Testament letters deal with how we relate with one another, how a church ought to operate, how to show love with one another. So many of the fruits of the Spirit cannot be fruitful if they're not being shown to one another. How can you be hospitable to yourself? That doesn't work.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's not how that works. It's all about how we relate to one another, because that reflects how God's holy character and His purposes for human beings and how He relates to humans. Yeah. Do you have anything you want to add?
Not currently.
Cool.
Stop switching the page.
Yeah.
I keep trying to click back onto the screen, and I keep accidentally switching what page I'm on.
Yeah. Jeremiah in chat bringing up the example of the Tower of Babel and just how a oneness was powerful there. I mean, true. And unfortunately, they use that oneness to rebel against God. So, yeah. But when we are one people and we are able to work together, we are more able to accomplish things for sure, because that's how we are made, is to be interpersonal. Absolutely. So God commands the behavior that he loves to see and also forbids that which offends him. Jesus summarized the moral law with two great commandments: love God and love your neighbor. Just to say, love God and love people in general. So those are the two great commandments that it all really boils down to. Love God, love people. And all of the Old Testament's instructions depend upon that, essentially. The moral teachings of Christ and his apostles is the old law deepened and reapplied, right? So this is not like Jesus coming out of the blue with like a whole bunch of like new, like it's oops all new. Absolutely not. Jesus builds upon, deepens and reapplies the old law into the new circumstances, which is to say the life in the kingdom of God. And biblical law is of various sorts. We get into the moral laws, right? So you can divide, especially in Leviticus, you can divide that up into moral laws and purity laws.
Mm-hmm.
The purity laws, they had a special purpose for those that were serving God directly in the temple, right? So making oneself pure, basically to like, you know, remove darkness from oneself in order to have communion with light. And so you know, so that's how you can view purity, is undarkening oneself in a sense and walking in light. So the so then the other half of that was the moral law, which is the stuff we were just talking about, where we have how do we relate to one another.
Mm-hmm.
But yes. Oh, and Jeremiah saying that yes, the Tower of Babel did not have the appropriate intent. But yeah, no, there. But it's about the oneness is regularly overlooked. No, I think you do have a point. That's when people work together, absolutely. So a lot of the law had symbolic meanings that got fulfilled in Jesus, especially again sacrifices.
Mm-hmm.
We've said this like a dozen times now, but we don't have to sacrifice animals, people. Or people. Anyways. Thankfully, we never had to sacrifice people.
Luckily.
Yeah.
There'd be a lot of people on that list for me.
Whoa! Dang!
Sorry! I'm sorry. That was an inside thought that came out. I apologize.
Oh, I'm making a clip of that later and using that.
Oh, man!
But anyways. So anyways, also Packer says that there were political and ceremonial laws, which, yeah, so there are laws that said, hey, when you establish a new king, go have that king create his own copy of the law, just like copy the law by hand on his own, so that he can, like, you know, memorize it and you know, learn it. And so that would be a one of these political or ceremonial laws. So some of those have limited application because they really apply to the immediate context of things. But Jesus affirmed the unchanging and universal force of God's moral law, essentially, right? So, because Jesus very explicitly says in Matthew 5, "Do not think that I've come to abolish the law or the prophets. I did not come to abolish, but to fulfill. For I say to you, until heaven and earth passes away, not the smallest letter or stroke or iota shall pass from the law until all is accomplished. So, that all to say, Jesus did come and by making us clean, some of the purity laws, such as what makes one unclean with regards to food, right? Those purity laws are undone. Sorry, I shouldn't say undone.
Reformed, I would say.
They are fulfilled in Jesus, right? So
I would also argue that those specific laws are fulfilled in Jesus, but they've also been on our portion of it replaced by doing things like repentance, because repentance isn't just, hey, I'm sorry for this thing that I did. It's also, making the promise that it won't happen again and then living that way. So it's kind of been both covered by God and then also on our end of things reformed into a different law that we are expected to follow.
Yeah. Another good example of this, even in the giving of the law. So the law was given 2 times to Israel. One was was at Sinai, just after the Exodus, and then and then again 40 years later when Moses gave his final sermon, which is the book of Deuteronomy. And if you look at those 2 givings of the laws, there is one law that seems to be in conflict, and that is how you should prepare the Passover meal. One of them says that you should boil, and the other says roast. I don't remember which one said which, but the point is that there is a disagreement there on which one you should do, and this is the point here. Those laws were given to two different generations, right? One was the generation that was going to be chilling out in tents in the wilderness, and then have to be able to get up and move at any given point. And the other was given to those that were about to claim permanent homes. So really, what we can extrapolate here, should you boil or roast? I would say it depends on the circumstances. It is do the best that you are able to do in your given circumstances.
Yeah.
Right. So, all that to say, that is a great way to look at the law in general, is to try to extrapolate the principles, because it's not about doing the specific acts, because again, a lot of that is case law that just kind of wraps up into how you can apply the 10 Commandments. But with regards to so with all of it though, you absolutely can, especially as you try to apply the 10 Commandments through them, look at the principles behind it and see what it is that God likes and dislikes. What kinds of things makes appeals to God, and what kind of things are ugly and repulsive to God. So, it all teaches. And God is always the same to this day. Go ahead.
I was going to say, I think making the best out of the situation that you're in is something that's really often overlooked, is people get kind of stuck on what they feel they're supposed to do. But sometimes what you're supposed to do isn't meant for right now. If you get I forgot what the word is, but if you feel called to something, that doesn't mean that calling is for right this second. For example, I know eventually and I don't want to because I don't like being in front of people. But I know for me, eventually I'm going to be called to be part of the music ministry. But right now, my life does not allow me to do that. So instead, I'm doing security. That's my calling. That's my ministry right now. So sometimes those callings are, and those aspects of what you're supposed to be doing needs to be adapted to the situation. And I think that's a really good point of, you have to kind of make the best with what you have, and keep your eyes on what the goal is, but don't fret on where you're at currently, because that's another part of that journey. That's kind of the prepping aspect of that journey.
Okay, gotcha. No, yeah, I would say that, yeah. I would say that's like, yeah, not everything can be, because for example, don't boil your goats in its mother's milk. I don't have goats, so not everything applies to everyone, but. And also some of that was that one would link up to the one of the first commandments of like glorifying God alone, worshiping God alone, because there was I believe there was some like pagan sacrifices that involved boiling goats in its mother's milk. So there's that, but. Yeah, all that to say, like, I guess that brings us into this next chapter, which is the last chapter that we're going to cover today, which is God's law in action. So God's moral law has three purposes. So its first function is, well, here, let me give them at a high level, and then we'll break down each one. It is to reflect the perfect righteousness of God. And the second is to restrain evil. And the third is to guide the regenerates into good works and the good that God has planned for them. Right? So we have glorifying God, restraining evil, and maximizing good. So, first one. The first function of the law in action is to be a mirror reflecting to us both of the perfect righteousness of God and also of our own sinfulness and shortcomings. And he quotes St. Augustine here, saying the law that bids us as we try to fulfill its requirements and become wearied by our weakness under it is to know how to ask the help of grace. The law is meant to give knowledge of sin, and by showing us that we are sinful, it also shows us our need of pardon and the danger of damnation, and thus leads us to repentance and faith in the first place. Yeah. Anything you want to add to that?
No, not that I can think of. I think it's worded very well.
Yeah, I agree. And the second function is to restrain evil. That's what we think of the most when we think of like laws, is like restraining evil. Like you cannot be out past a certain time if your area has a curfew. Or like you cannot steal from one another, that kind of thing. And so restraining evil, Packer says here, does not change the heart, unfortunately. There are a lot of people that try that, you put those restraints on, they will see it and be like, ha ha ha, I'm going to break it now anyway because you told me not to. But anyway.
You can't tell me what to do.
But no, all authority is given by God, and so even that applies to civil authority as well. There various judgments are typically given in those restraints as well. So, for example, we read the Noahic, the Noah covenant, and in there it said that anyone that puts to death a man, by man shall also then be killed. Right? There's a punishment, in that case, a capital punishment, for committing murder. And so um, civil order does protect the righteous from the unjust in that sense, by laying out what one should or shouldn't do. Yeah, and then you have HOAs, which just exists to arbitrarily be an authority in and of itself. Yo, Flat Cap, welcome in. And there goes my thing, thinking that I typically do a raid dance to these raids, and you'll have to give us just a few minutes because we're almost done recording our discussion on this. But welcome in, Flat Cap Dapper Pastor. Good to have y'all in here. What were you streaming? Some IRL? Ooh, what were you up to? I've got to know. Yes, welcome in, Sunshine Games. I can't speak apparently. Driven by Faith
right.
and Next Tempest. Welcome in. Oh, you're riding your bike around. Oh, that's awesome. That's awesome. Yeah, I've seen you doing that from time to time. Looks like a fun time. Yeah. Hope your bike riding was going well. For those joining us in, hello. We are in the middle of discussing J.I. Packer's book on Concise Theology. We are covering Holiness, Covenant, and the Law today. So we're talking about the three functions of the law right now. The first being to that we, teaching us how to glorify God. The second being to restrain evil, and the third being to maximize good. So we're actually just wrapping up because we're hitting this third part here. So the third function, as Packer says, is to guide the regenerate into the good works that God has planned for them, which he cites Ephesians 2:10 for. So the law tells God's children what will please their heavenly Father. It could be called a family code. And so Christ was speaking this third use of the law when he came to his disciples to say they must be taught the law to do all that he commanded. Because this is a good one. It says that, like, for whoever loves me keeps my law, right? Jesus says. But yeah, so the obedience to commands does prove one's love for him. Yeah, if you love me, you keep my commandments, as John 14:15 says. Mm-hmm. And we will get in a future week about how the balance between someone that is like overly works based, because you can get into legalism with that, and we'll cover legalism in a future chapter. But though, all that to say, like, if you love someone, you do what pleases them. And so God saying, like, hey, you, like, these are the things that I see as good. You're going to do those things if you love God, right? Mm-hmm. Did you have anything you wanted to add?
I think the kind of last, I think it's the last sentence, or second to last sentence of where it says Christ was speaking of this third law, this third use of the law, when he said that those who become his disciples must be taught to keep the law and do all that he had commanded. And that is obedience to his commands that will provide the reality of one's love for him. I think that's really kind of the most important aspect of that third application, because like you said, if you love somebody, you're going to do what pleases them. But also, when we're doing discipleship, we want people to know what God's love is. And so by obeying his commandments, we're showing obeying, this law that he set up for us, we're showing them the reality of God's love, how much it blesses us, and then, kind of showing them what their life can be like by also doing the same thing. So it's, kind of combining all of those aspects of obedience, love for God, which we talked about earlier, and then love for others. Like, how you love others is by obeying God's law. Yeah,
I love how you said that. Like, it's like blesses us. Because a lot of people get hung up on thinking of only that the second function that Packer lists, which is restraining of evil. People see law as restraints, but though like it also has the function of us being more Christ-like and of us walking in goodness and receiving the blessings that is following God's law. Because like, man, to have have a like, to be one that doesn't lie to one another, to be one that is hospitable towards one another. Like, there is so much goodness and blessing that comes upon oneself, in addition to us blessing the other by doing so. Yeah. Yes, that there, I believe, wraps up everything. Did you have anything else on these subjects that you wanted to add?
I think that the aspect of law, like we were just talking about, people think of it as restraints a lot, but I think that people forget that this is not laws like governmental laws that we're talking about. This is a different type of law for governing our lives, and those laws are put in place for a reason, and they're also adaptable to who we are. And the laws that you apply to your life are, I don't want to say flexible, because they're not flexible, but they're adaptable to your life, and they start to adapt more as you grow your relationship with God, and it gives you more of an understanding of why these things are in place. And I think that people tend to forget that these laws are a part of being a Christian, and that they're not meant to restrain us. They're meant to kind of help us grow in our faith and in ourselves and in our relationship with God.
Absolutely. Thank you, Flat Cap, there for the lurk, and also thank you again for the raid. I understand if you need to get going off, especially if you just got done riding your bike, my dude. But yes, and Sunshine and the Church Digital, thank you for pressing the follow button there as well. Much appreciated. But yeah, no, I agree, and I think, and as we wrap up here, I think it's a good reminder for us that God wants us to image Him, and therefore it is just according to our design to walk according to the law. So all of that to say, there will be absolutely more to talk about here on this subject as we get into works and legalism in a future week, which I believe will probably that's in a couple weeks that I have it planned for. I believe next week we are going to be talking about, and actually the next 2 weeks we're going to be covering Christology. Which is more about the nature of Jesus, the nature of his ministry on earth, his obedience, his vocation, as well as the transfiguration, resurrection, ascension, mediation, all of these different aspects of Jesus's ministry. So we're going to be covering that these next 2 weeks. But yes. But with all that, Rose, would you like to close us out in prayer? Actually, no, wait. Before you do so, because I keep almost forgetting every time. Can you shout yourself out? Who are you, and where can people find you?
I is Black Rose. I'm a variety Christian streamer who's just now getting back in a stream. I do crochet things, hence all the yarn, and I like to play games. Yeah, that's all I got.
Yeah,
I'm very tired.
Indeed. Yes, go make sure that you are following Rose for some more awesome Christian content. And with that, would you like to close us in prayer?
Sure. Lord, thank you for letting us be able to come together and discuss your law and be able to kind of apply it to our lives. Thank you for letting this conversation be light, and hopefully this conversation will be able to touch someone's heart and bring them closer to you. Thank you for being able to allow us to have this time to bless other people through these discussions. And thank you for Will for being such a wonderful servant to you. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen.